Hello and welcome again to Rosie's Preserving School Pressure Canning, and we're going to be doing the first of I think is a little mini series of what to do with the summer glut. Now we're slightly ahead of the curve because I really wanted to show you what to do when you get to it, and everybody's sort of situation will be different. They'll either be growing, or they'll have, they might have an allotment, or somebody with an allotment, or they're just a bargain from the market or the supermarket. It doesn't matter where you get your produce from particularly, but at this time of year from now on, there's going to be plenty of it about. And if you see a bargain, or you've got a sudden flush of something in the garden or the allotment, then it's good to know what to do with it. So we're going to be doing Ratatouille today, which is a favorite of our family and is a staple of other things. So it's a useful thing to make. I've got the ingredients in front of me, all very colorful: peppers, aubergine, courgettes, beans, garlic. Most people will have a sort of family preference. And if there's something in this that you don't like, then leave it out. And if there's things not in here that you like, you can add them in, providing they're, usual pressure canning things. So I'm going to make this mix. What I do is obviously I chop everything up, but I don't chop it that finely. We prefer to have the ratatouille quite chunky, and it does cook down in the processing, but you can make it however you want to. If you want it finely sort of chopped and more of a, I don't know, it's not really a paste, but if you want finer pieces, then do that. That's absolutely fine. So I've taken my onion skins off to save time, and my garlic, and I've chopped and tailed my beans. I have the pressure canner on, heating up, because this is going to be hot going into the canner. So the beans I'm going to sort of cut into thirds. I don't like them tiny, but it depends on the length of the bean, frankly. But these are, so that they'll end up kind of at I don't know what that is, about 4 centimeters, about 2 inches long. So I should do those, and they can go in the pan. We're going to add some olive oil in a minute and turn it on, but I want to get some things done. Actually, the recipe says cook the onions and garlic together in the olive oil, but I've reverted into the way that I do it normally. But I will put some olive oil in, and we can get that going. We'll do the onions and garlic next. You just need enough to sort of make it all so it doesn't stick. So about 3 or 4 tablespoonfuls. You don't want masses of oil in the finished product, so just put enough so that everything gets coated. Put that down out of the way, and I'll put this on sort of medium so that everything can be coming up to temperature. Let's do some of this garlic. I've got quite a lot of garlic. I like the ratatouille quite garlicky, but if you don't like it, leave it out. If you like less, do less. It's not a problem. And I don't faff about sort of making it a puree or anything like that. I just chop it into small pieces, and I find it sort of generally melts into the general mix by the end of all the processing and everything. So save time where you can. Oops. Great. See if I can get that into there without dropping it all over the floor. We need to make this really well flavored because it's not an also ran. It's a dish in its own right. You know, you can just enjoy, even straight out of the jar, cold, you know, room temperature ratatouille in the summer with some grated parmesan over the top and another drizzle of olive oil and some good bread. It makes a lovely lunch. And you can also do traditional things with it, like empty it into a dish and top with mashed potato, like you would make a cottage pie. If it's well flavored, it's very, very satisfying in itself. So sort of pay attention to what you're putting in. The onions, I tend to, depending on their size, cut in half, top to bottom, and then in three, and then across the middle, and leave fairly big chunks of onion. I would say during the summer as well, if you've got a garden and you've got the ingredients, make this sort of little and often, and then you know, everything will be at its best, and it won't be such a mammoth job to sort of prep it all. Don't be tempted to water bath it though, it's not safe water bath. Right, that's the onions. I'm going to just give them a few minutes to cook together. I'm just going to go and find my spoon. Give them a stir around so they get covered in oil. Now, the aubergine are lovely these days. I didn't used to use them very much because they are renowned for being bitter, and you had to prep them beforehand. You chop them up, sprinkle salt on them, either leave them for a few hours or overnight, and they have been hard to get hold of, so they tended to get left out. I'm actually growing some this year for the first time, so I'm hoping they'll be successful. But you don't have to do that anymore. They've bred them so that they're not bitter. So we just need to cut them in the preferred size and shape, which I will just keep as fat slices, I would say. So that you've still got some recognizable aubergine in the finished dish. You cut them up too finely, they tend to sort of go to mush and disappear. Now, I first published a recipe with just the ingredients on and no amounts, and I know that sort of bothered a few people, and I did sort of reissue with some guidance. But the whole point of this particular dish is that you are always going to have odd amounts of things, and if you start trying to cook to the recipe, that's not really the idea of it. The idea is to process what you have together, and if it isn't the same mix every time, it doesn't matter if you've got more than you should have of something and less of something else. it's just fine. And so get used to having a look at what you've got and thinking, well, what that would make a lovely whatever, and go for it, basically, with the general principles in mind, of course. So I'm going to put the aubergine in. It will tend to oxidize, it will tend to go brown if you leave it out in the open too long. So that's another reason. Get it chopped and get it in and get it coated. You've got to remember that all of this type of cooking and preserving came from people who had nothing in the winter, only cabbage, basically, and parsnips, and they were trying to preserve what they had in the summer to make the winter a little less dreary. So nothing was wasted, and they didn't really cook to recipes. You cook to a method and then preserve what you have in the way that seems best at the time. And I would say for the UK, in the current climate, those rules hold good. You know, there's no reason to do anything different than our ancestors did. We are going to be equally challenged, shall I say, on the food front, I think, for what we're able to get hold of. It's no good having a set idea in your mind, really. You've got to go with the flow a bit. I'm going to turn this down now. It's I don't want the garlic to burn or anything. Right, courgettes will be thick slices till the body of the courgette fattens out, and then I'll cut it down the middle and carry on slicing. The same reason as the aubergine, really. I don't want it to be breaking up too much. I'm going to open one of my passatas and put in, so it's got something to cook in. So I'll put the rest in a minute. Well, that opened a bit easily. That seal's not good. Oh. If you need some liquid, you can either put some of the passata or just put, you know, about a cupful of water in to stop them all sticking while you prep the rest. Some people who grow tomatoes put fresh tomatoes in. I prefer to put the passata because it is smoother. If you put whole tomatoes in, if you don't skin them, then the skins come off and float about in the whole thing. And you also get all the seeds, and I prefer to make passata and add that instead. but it's up to you if you want to put tomatoes in. Now what I've got left are peppers, and I'll just show you what I've only recently learnt, which is just incredible, I think. You know, you've got all this, should I chop it round here, do this, you know, to get the seeds out. But if you just use your thumbs and press either side on the green bit of the stalk and push, it goes into the pepper, and you can then, it's the first time, that's it. And then you can cut it in half, and all that lump comes away, and you're just left with the flesh without having a sort of little hat of pepper flesh stuck to the stalky bit in the middle. And it's less waste and much easier to prepare. And I wish I'd known that years ago. Pepper out as many of the seeds as you can. And then again, I keep these sort of fairly chunky, really. I cut them into slices so that on one half of the pepper, I get sort of 4 slices like that, 4 separate slices. And then I cook them like that. And that's mainly because a favourite winter dish for us is making the ratatouille into a curry, vegetable curry. And it's sort of nice to have the big pieces of pepper in there. And I think that's one of the best things to make with it, is a curry. Very quick to do and easy. Of course, it depends how big your peppers are, how big you cut them. But so you can be putting those into the pan as well. Keep stirring and coating and what have I got? I've got red and yellow, orange and yellow. That's it. These yellow ones have got masses of seeds, and it'd be easier to wash them out than anything else. Right. That's plenty of pepper. Might do another one in a minute while I'm waiting for the other passata to heat up. Right, I'm putting some salt, which is about 2 teaspoonfuls. And my other passata I've got here, and I'll find another one, I think, because it will need more liquid. There will be liquid that comes out of the vegetables, of course, as they cook. So not too much to worry about. Let's see how that looks. Add. Might leave it at that actually, because I don't want it too runny. And then the other thing I've got some oregano that I grabbed out of the garden just as we were leaving. But you can put in whatever sort of herbs that you like. If you haven't got any herbs growing, or you haven't got any fresh, you can put dried ones in. It's not a problem. But I have got them growing, and I like to use them if I can. And I'm just going to sort of chop across them a bit so they're not too big. They're just about to go into flower, and so all the leaves are quite big, and the flowers will come, and then the leaves will die back, so a bit will not be quite so nice. So I'm going to chop them up. Put the leaves in. It's good because they're all stuck to the wooden spoon. So they're going into the pan. Yeah, I'll stir and it will even it up. I might put one more pepper in. Salt out of the way. Which one? The red one, I think. Right. It really looks colourful and delicious, just like that, to be honest. Now, if you can get the camera on it, it's and take that out of the way. Clear the decks a bit. Right. Let's take my cardigan off as well. It's warm in here doing that. It's quite a chilly day here, actually, compared to what it has been. Okay. So I've got a mixture of jars I'm using. I've got 750 ml mostly, because we, like it as a main meal. And then I've got a few 500s just in case, which will be useful for sort of a quick lunch or something like that. And I'll need my funnel. It's not there. I'll find that. I think my wide neck funnel, because I'm certain to make a mess with this, that's for sure. And I need the ladle as well. Sorry, I haven't got that.
I've already made a jolly mess everywhere.
Oh, I will, don't worry. It wouldn't be canning if I didn't, but actually I think I'm going to get the pan down lower so I can manage it a bit better. Move these spare peppers out of the way. It's better. Oh, not the weight flying now. I'll find that in a minute. Do I need it? Okay, so make sure you sort of keep a good mix. And then just fill the jars. Try and sort of keep them fairly even. I know it isn't easy with a mix like this. I'm going to do about 3 ladlefuls in each jar, and then give it a good poke around and see if I can top it up. This is when it's not such a good idea to big pieces of pepper, of course, but never mind. They all slither in eventually. with a bit of persuasion. Right. Done very well today, put my things out. I've got my debubbler. I'm going to give these all a poke around and get them a bit more nest air pockets. See if I can get some more in. I mean, you won't get it super smooth unless you've got a lot of liquid in there. I'm going to fill them with a bit more mix and then just top them up with some plain boiling water to get up to the headspace. And then they'll kind of, with their own juice, they should be fine.
I'm now just fishing all the beans out that I didn't chop in half, which is now a nightmare. So I'll probably get way behind, but I'm not bothered.
Oh, don't worry, they'll soften in the processing and be
Yeah, it's a bit too tall for me short jars though.
all right.
Oh.
Beat them into submission. This is where really these beans, the French type beans, come into their own if you grow them, because I'm not fond, as you know, of them just plain processed, but going into something like this, they're invaluable and they taste amazing. So I still keep growing them every year, even though I don't like them plain pressure canned. I just find them too soft when they're reheated, I'm afraid. But Right, I think that one's ready. I think that one's ready. These two need topping up a bit more. When you've got everything in, I suggest you sort of swoosh your pan around with some boiling water from the kettle, and then use that to top up your headspace up to the level, 3 centimeters or an inch below the top. And then you won't waste any of the pan contents.
What's the most 500s I can get in my canner? Is it 10?
No, well, you can get 14.
Oh.
You can get them in easily enough. Getting it, you get 6 around the outside and 1 in the middle. When it comes to taking them out, it's a bit of a fiddle getting the tongs round, but you can do it. But if you wanted to do 2 layers of 12, you could do that. I mean, one layer of 6 and another layer of 6 is what I meant, not 2 layers of 12.
Right, I'm going to go and find some more jars then, because I've got plenty. I've done 2, 6, 9, and I've got probably enough for another 3. So
Yeah, well, go for it.
Awesome. I'm going to have a root around in the pantry then.
Right. Right. Oak. Right. Right. I've just done what I said I would do. I put some water in the pan. I had heated it up, but it got cold again, so I've just put it back on the hob and heated up and got all the kind of pan scrapings off, which I'm going to put into my jars to go up to the line. Hopefully there'll be enough. Bits of onion stuck there. Oops. Yeah, that was that one because I'm trying to avoid the debubbler. One more right off. There we go. It's good. Wipe up that. So it doesn't overheat. Right, a bit more debubbling going on because it's such a lumpy mix. Okay, so let's wipe the tops of the jars with vinegar. So I've just spilt, so it's got tomato all over it. Right, that's all of those. I'll put the vinegar in the canner now while I think about it. Right, see if I can get these in without burning my arm. Oh, gosh. Stiff. Okay, so now we wait for venting. We'll clear the decks. I'll come back in a couple of minutes when I've cleared up, give you a chance to fill your extra jars, those that are doing that. Yeah. Okay, well, I managed to wash up and the canner has just started venting. So I'm going to put the timer on for 10 minutes. And then I've got something to show you to make with courgettes. Because if you do grow any, you know, it won't be long before you have too many of them and you don't know what to do with them. So you'll probably need a pen, paper.
It was the first time I realised my youngest knew how to swear when I asked him what he wanted for tea, and he says, I don't care as long as it hasn't got bloody courgettes in it.
Oh, well, don't give him this then.
We'd obviously had a glut of them that year.
Yeah. Well, mine, I put little plants in raised beds, 3 of them, and it was as dry as dust, you know, and I watered them. And then we had that terrific storm, and the next day they were each about this far big across, you know, this high, and now they're massive. They didn't look as though they were going to survive, but they have. So anyway, I'll just do my little advert. My book is out, which is Rosie Lets Off Steam, a guide to pressure canning so you still have a life. And it's full of ideas of basic mixes and then things to make with them. There are pictures, I just haven't, that's it. There's lots of pictures, lots of ideas, measurements, lots of tips and advice. So that's out now, which I'm very pleased about. Right, so what we're going to be making, these look a bit pathetic because I could only sacrifice 1 courgette to them. So I haven't made a great big bowl full. I used half the courgette to make them, and then I'm just going to show you the method with the other half. So it's not wow, it's just a method. So I need to get a knife. No. So these are they in this bowl, which are baked zucchini or courgette chips, and they're good. They're a good keto thing if you're doing that, or paleo. They're no carbs at all. I'm not, but I know a lot of people are. So in my bowl here, you need quite a deep bowl. You need about 75 ml of olive oil, and this is for 2 medium courgettes. So bearing in mind I've only done 1, I've got more mix than I need, but it was easier to measure what it was supposed to be. So 75 ml of olive oil, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, a quarter of a teaspoon of paprika, and half a teaspoon of salt, and some black pepper if you want to put that in. You could, I think, put some cayenne pepper or even dried chili flakes if you wanted to, you know, make them sort of have a bit of a zip. So you mix that sort of mix together, and you slice your courgette into thinnish slices. You can do it on mandolin if you're brave enough. And these really are to be made and eaten. They're not something you sort of keep for any length of time. So they'd be best to eat straight out of the oven, I think. That will be plenty. So you've got your pieces here, and then you put them into the oil mix to coat them. Give them a stir around. And when you take them out, just make sure they are coated. I've got a baking tray with a piece of parchment paper on here. Now I've got this baking tray with the parchment because that's what the recipe says, but I actually cook those ones in the air fryer. So if you do have an air fryer, they work out fine. But you don't need to do them for all that long. So just make sure they're coated and then lay them on the baking parchment. If you're doing them in the oven, have the oven on quite high, about 200 degrees centigrade, or I don't know what that would be, about 5 gas, I imagine, something like that, 5 to 6. Single layer, not overlapping. Oh, look at that, exactly the right number for the rows. Okay. So then, let me just wipe my oily fingers. I've got some grated Parmesan in here. There's probably about 2 to 3 ounces, just freshly grated Parmesan, or you could use, you know, if you've got a bag of already grated or dried, you can use that. And then sprinkle quite a generous amount on top of each slice. As I say, you could add some chili flakes either into the oil dip or into the cheese to make them more palatable for youngsters, perhaps, you know, more desirable, shall I say, not more palatable. I mean, it tastes fine anyway, but you know, anything with chili, isn't it, usually? So it doesn't matter if it spills over onto the baking parchment because it all bakes, and as I've got 2 or 3 in there that have got sort of sticky out bits of Parmesan cooked to a crisp. I think this would be great if you were going to sort of sit down to a film and you've got a glass of wine or something and just nibble. It's just about the right amount of cheese, actually. I've got it on everyone. I think so. I haven't missed anybody. Right. So then you pop those in the oven and bake them for about 15 minutes. They should get nice and brown. on one side, and then turn them over and put them back in. You could put some more cheese on the other side if you wanted to. And then when you take them out of the oven, cook them for about another 15 minutes to get that side crisp, and then just take them out and lay them on some kitchen paper to drain, and then serve them. They don't need any other seasoning or anything like that. And but in the air fryer, I did them, I think it was 200 degrees for about 5 minutes each side, 5 to 10. I kept looking at them to see, because the recipe wasn't for an air fryer, so I was just sort of looking to see how they were doing. And they certainly cook a lot quicker in the air fryer, of course, but you know, perfectly doable in the oven, you know, just done like that. So that's one little idea for the dreaded courgettes. I know there are all sorts of cakes and things like that, but I never really fancy them. I mean, you can make this same sort of mix. You could mix in some panko with them, the breadcrumbs that you can buy, the sort of nice breadcrumbs, and make them as sticks, like you buy. Sometimes you buy prepared veg for crudité or something. Just make them about, I don't know, 20 centimeters, 4 inches long, cut into quite thin sticks, and then coat them the same, and then coat them with the mix the breadcrumbs into the cheese, and then just bake them with that you know, it's a similar kind of idea. Okay, so that's my venting. I'll put the weight on. I'm still going to wait for the other bit to pop up, the lock. So we've got 75 minutes for 500 ml and 750, and 90 minutes for 1000 ml. Right, my canner is locked, so I'm going to start timing. Then I'll come back. What will be 75 minutes will be about 4:45, about 5 o'clock, when the canner is switched off. And while it's depressurizing, I will show you what our supper's going to be tonight, made with the ratatouille. Not that ratatouille, another one. And it's just an idea to use it for in the future. So I don't know if you remember years ago, Jimmy Young on, and they had that jingle, didn't they? What's the recipe today, Jim? You know, and it feels a bit like that. What's for supper today? So, but that's what we'll be eating later on, and I'll show you how to do it. Okay, so I'll see you back about 5. Thanks. Okay, well, my canner is switched off, and I'm waiting for it to depressurize. I thought I'd just show you what we're going to have for supper tonight, and it is using the ratatouille. Now, this is a jar I made in August last year, so not what I've made today, but it's all done in the same way. And what I've got in my frying pan, I'm going to make a pizza with it. Now, I can't be bothered, unless I'm baking bread on that day, I can't be bothered with making a bread base and all that business, yeast dough. So we prefer actually like a pastry base. So this is just self-raising flour and butter and salt mixed together in the normal way, the butter rubbed into the flour, and then mixed with cold water. It depends on the size of the pan how much you need, but I guess I made about 250 grams of flour, and then about 200 grams of butter probably, and just rubbed it in and made a dough. And then I put it in the middle of the cold pan. I don't heat the pan up at that stage. I've just put some flour on my hand, and I press it out, keep pressing, until it goes over to the sides of the pan all the way round, and also slightly up the sides as well. Then I put it onto the hob and I cook that for about 10 minutes or so, 10 to 15 minutes. And you can see the underneath is nice and toasty and cooked. The top is not as cooked, but it's firm. So the filling won't sort of soak straight into it, or say the filling, the topping. So you can put anything on this, you know, whatever you like as a pizza. And I do all different sorts. I might put a layer of passata, I might put tomato paste, or mix the two together to make it sort of slightly thicker. You can put sliced mushrooms, bacon, ham, anything that you would normally have on a pizza. And you can put mozzarella on it, or grated cheese. The world's your oyster, really. And then normally I would cook the pastry base and then put the filling on while the pastry was still hot. But I made this morning, so this is cold now. So given that the pastry would be hot, you put the filling on, and then I put it under a hot grill. Put the whole pan under a hot grill, and then cook it for however long is appropriate for the fillings you've got on the top. If I was putting ham, I'd put it as it is. If I was putting bacon, I'd probably cook it a bit first and then cut it up and put bacon pieces on. But things like mushrooms and peppers, things like that, you can just put on as it is, and you don't have to cook them first. You can put slices of tomato and, as I say, lumps of mozzarella, that kind of thing. Now, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to put a layer of ratatouille on it. And I dare say the dear people of Napoli would be horrified. But anyway, this is going to be our supper. I mean, it's sort of pizza-like, but it's not really a pizza. So I'm not emptying the whole lot on because I want to not use it too wet. So I'm going to spoon on. I forgot my big spoon again, so I'm going to spoon it on with a teaspoon. I've got beans in there, yellow courgettes, pieces of pepper, green beans. There'll be garlic, onions, just like we've done today. And I'll put a good layer over the whole top. It would be quicker to tip it out, but I don't want. I'm probably going to have enough for our lunch tomorrow if I don't. But I also don't want all this tomato juice on top of the pastry. Normally what I would have is a pastry mix in the freezer in a Ziploc bag. I didn't today because I've run out and I have the bag on the worktop, which I have to fill up again. But I usually have a pastry mix that I can then just add water to, or an egg or milk or whatever I want to do. And I keep that in the freezer and I take it out and I use it from frozen. And I also have a crumble mix as well, like that, with sugar in it. It saves a lot of time. You can just spoon out the amount you want to use. This whole jar actually is going to go on here quite well. I'll find another use for the tomato juice. And you can certainly see from that it looks very similar to what we put in the jars today. A year on, it looks like it's just been freshly made. So that is our vegetable base. Now, if you want to, you can leave it as a vegetable base. You know, you could put some cheese on there if you don't want to eat anything other than, you know, if you're vegetarian or vegan or something like that. But I have a little tin here of anchovies. So I'm going to lift those out if I can quite carefully and split them. They all get welded together once they're vacuumed in the jar, in the tin. And I'm just going to sort of lay those over the top. They give a nice salty hit to the veg. So if you were to come in from work or shopping or gardening, whatever, and you've got your pastry mix in the freezer, you can quickly make up the base and put it on to cook. And while you're waiting for that, you can get your toppings sorted out. Now that's all of the anchovies used up, which is good. I never like having one or two left because there's never anything that you want to do with it right at that moment. Then the other thing I'm going to put on, I'm not going to put on mozzarella, mainly because I haven't got any at the moment. I was going to make some this morning because I've got a fantastic recipe for making it from whole milk and vinegar. But actually it would have used up all my milk, so I didn't. So what I've got in this jar here is feta cheese in olive oil and herbs. Now, our farm box, you order the cheese that you want, and if they haven't got it, they substitute something else. And that's all well and good. I mean, in the summer, I do quite like, you know, having a salad with feta cheese on and stuff. But in the depths of winter, when you need to make your lunchbox for work and you wanted some cheese for sandwiches and you've got a nice block of feta, it's not that convenient. And it tends to sort of stay in the fridge for a bit. And then I thought, oh, we're not going to eat this. So I opened it and drained it, patted it dry with kitchen paper, cut it into cubes, and then put it in the jar. And it's got olive oil, thyme, fresh thyme, and fresh bay leaves in there. And it is absolutely delicious. It just stays in there. And if we're having lunch, I take a few cubes out each. And this is what I'm going to put on the top of the pizza instead of mozzarella. I think it will go quite well with the ratatouille anyway. So, and then you can just add to it if you've got another packet that arrives that you haven't used or can't use, you can just pop it in there and take the time off of it. One more piece. And then when I get home, I've got lots of basil in the greenhouse with the tomatoes. I'll probably go and get some fresh basil and just put over the top once it's cooked. So what I'm going to do is just use the end of this knife and break this up a little bit so that it sort of spreads out slightly. And I could put some olives on as well, scattered over. You know, just look around, see what you've got in the cupboard or the fridge and go for it. So once that's all hot and bubbling and everything, and it will smell amazing, it's a very delicious way of making a quick pizza without all the bread base or the dough base fat. And I put that. It looks a bit of a funny colour on the screen, but it isn't here. It's nice and red and orangey looking, and with the white cheese on it. Looks a bit sort of lime green there, but it's not. But so I'll take that home, and we'll have it as soon as we get home, and a nice glass of red, and probably a film. Okay.
Way more green.
Put this out of the way so I don't make everything a bit oily. We're not down to pressure yet. That's it. How are we doing? Maybe that. The next time is a garden green spaghetti sauce. We're moving away a bit from tomatoes and everything tomato. So we'll be making that next time. So that'll be nice. Are you all both okay? Some
Just literally turn mine off, so it'll be a while yet before
yeah, no, there was a how long with the butter and olive oil keep in the fridge, and can you repeat what you added to it? Yes, I can.
A quick resume, that's all.
I don't actually keep it in the fridge, it just sits on the shelf.
All right.
I think if you keep it in the fridge, the oil will start
Oh,
to
yeah. Yeah.
solidify. And I did it probably before Christmas, probably.
All right.
So then it's fine. I drained the batter, because you know when it comes in a packet, it's always got like either whey or salt water in it.
Yeah.
So I drain it, and then I just patted it. I wasn't obsessive about it. I just patted it dry, put it on some kitchen paper, and just blotted it really, and cut it into cubes, put it in the jar with just good olive oil, and then some sprigs of fresh thyme. Depends how big your jar is. I mean, just I don't think you can over flavor it. You know, you don't have to put
Right.
herbs in, but I like the sort of smell when you open the jar. It's just sort of very Greek, you know, because if you go there and you're walking about, everywhere is herbs, and you're always walking on herbs, and it all smells wonderful. So yeah, some sprigs of thyme, and I put a couple of big bay leaves in as well, fresh
Bay leaves, that's it.
because they have a nice sort of very nice clean sort of flavour to them, and aroma as well. It's a nice combination. I didn't put any salt or anything like that because the cheese is salty enough, I think. But again, if you wanted to put chili flakes in or something like that, if you like to have everything flavored with chili, then do that. You know, you can put in whatever you want. You could put lemon zest in, that would be nice and fresh for the summer. Black peppercorns. You know, it's your choice really. That's what I'm trying to sort of give you, is that you can start to layer flavors, and you don't have to have the permission of a recipe. You can just say, oh, I know what would be nice in there, and try it out. You know, if you don't like it, well, don't do it again. That's is my advice, or give it to someone else. You know? That's always good. If you make chutney or something that you don't like, those are the ones you give away. You know, when people start pestering you for, have you got a jar of this or that? But no, it's I think I was pleased to find a way that I could keep it and use it without, you know, it's not, if you haven't ordered feta cheese specifically, it's quite difficult to use up in your general daily life. I think it's got very sort of specific uses, and I know they prefer to send something rather than nothing, but it's not always, you know, welcomed particularly. I think, oh goodness, I think they did it 2 or 3 weeks running. I thought, oh, don't keep offloading all this cheese you've got onto me. Now I've got to deal with it, but actually it's worked out well. So
Well, sounds quite simple to do.
oh yes, yeah, well, there's no cooking as such. So so that's always a plus in my book. And it's how the Greek keep it, of course. You know, they have jars of it, and talking of jars of it, in our Wednesday class we made strawberry jam this week, and there's a fabulous YouTube on YouTube and it's these two husband and wife, and they're in the Eastern Bloc somewhere. I can't remember which country. It's sort of like Poland or somewhere like that, and they've got a little small holding, and they've got a strawberry patch, which is, I would say, a small old-fashioned field size, if you know what I mean, like a pocket handkerchief field. And every day they go and pick all the strawberries that are ripe and carry them back to the house, and they work outside. They've got a big wooden trestle table and have massive bowls, like aluminium bowls, enamel bowls about this big across, which the lady does it all. She puts the strawberries in water and washes them, and then she lifts them out and puts them in a different bowl, and then goes through taking all the tops off and the leaves and everything, and puts them in another bowl, all about this big across. And once she's got them all prepared like that, she then tips the sugar on them right up to the top of the bowl. Goodness knows how much sugar there is. I don't know. It looked like about, I don't know, 5 to 7 kilos worth, but it covered the strawberries. And then she got in with her hands and was doing like this and getting all the sugar all over the strawberries. And she's had massive jars. They were about this big across and about that tall with a big wide neck. And she put a wide neck funnel in and an old enamel kind of tea mug, it looked like. And she was scooping these strawberries out. And of course, now they're in the sugar, they're starting to release their juice. And she just scooped it all up, juice and all, and put it all in these big jars. And she did 2 or 3 big jars, and then put the lid on. And the next thing you saw, she's in the local market selling these big jars of strawberries, and people buy them. They keep in the sugar. They're not cooked or anything, and they keep in the sugar. And then in the winter, as a treat, they'll scoop them out to have, you know, or as a pudding, or with something or other, yogurt, or what did I say the other day? They would have it with things like rice pudding, you could have it on, you know. And I thought it was fascinating that this process, but it was also big scale. I've never seen. I don't know where they get all this big equipment from. I mean, it's only bowls and jars, but goodness knows they must manufacture them there, I suppose. I've never seen anything like it. And it's quite an operation, and I imagine she does that nearly every day as the strawberries ripen. And but it was like watching 2 children, you know. They were bent over double picking, and they pick, and then one in the mouth, and pick, and then eating another one, you know. It was quite but there's nobody saying anything, you just watch it. It's just, there's some music, but nobody explains anything, or, you know, there's no sort of quantities or anything like that.
I think I've seen them, and the countryside's beautiful,
Yes.
and the pottery as well.
Yeah, I mean, it might have been Croatia or somewhere like that, because they're big on gardens and allotments and all the rest of it. There was a fascinating, who was the guy that did the tour of all the gardens and allotments and everything? And a lot of them you get to by water, and they're all on islands that are floating, like floating reed banks, only they're floating allotments.
Oh,
And you
I've
get to
seen
them
that.
by boat, then go to your allotment. And because there's no trouble about watering anything, you know, there's masses of water. So, but no, I think we get very blinkered. We think of the way we do things, and that's how it's done, you know. But actually, when you look around the world, there's all sorts. Was it Stanley Tucci's, one of Stanley Tucci's series, possibly? I'm not sure. Right, how are we doing? We're down to 0. Take off the weight. I've got my towel ready. I think there'd be an outcry in this country, though. People went to markets and saw what looked like about a 5-gallon jar full of strawberries and sugar. They'd all be having a fit about the sugar. And that's it. Right, let's get this open. Always nerve-wracking with all the steam. Oh. Right. Over. Still boiling away like mad. There. Good. Just to remind you, I said that I use these to make a vegetable curry, which I do. I just put a little bit of olive oil in a pan and add whatever curry spices I'm going to use. It's generally garam masala and cumin, and sometimes either curry powder or curry paste. And I just heat that up in the oil just to start the kind of flavors mixing. And then I put the ratatouille in and then cook it for as long as it takes to do the rice, really. And then we either have plain yogurt on the top, or sometimes I'll make up, I've got some coconut milk powder, which I can make up into sort of a thickish coconut milk and put on there, or something like that. And with some flatbreads or poppadoms or something, it makes a really, really pleasant meal. And it's very quick, of course, which is always a bonus. Okay, so we're going to let those cool down, and then another lot for the shelf. That won't be the last lot this year, I bet. I'll be making quite a bit more. So are you okay, both of you, with your canners and things? Okay then. So good to see you, and I'll see you next time for the green garden spaghetti or garden green spaghetti sauce. Okay, thank you.